Today, we are covering the Congressional District 3 race between Democrat Jackie Rosen and Republican Danny Tarkanian. You just heard from Jackie Rosen. Well, let's talk to her opponent. Danny Tarkanian has been known to longtime Las Vegans since he was in high school, and then when he played basketball for his dad at UNLV. He and his family also have a long history of public service. Danny, welcome to KNPR.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So the caveat that I'm giving everybody is that there are many things to talk about, but we're not going to talk about the ads. I don't want to know about the horse race. I want to know about policy. I want to talk about the mood of this country and what you will do if and when you get to Congress.
Sounds great.
So let's start out these conversations. We always start with these conversations with, why do you want this job? Why do you want to be a congressman?
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, my family's been involved in public service within the state of Nevada for a long period of time. I was raised that that's very important in your life to be able to give back to the community for all of the community has given to us. This community has been fabulous to my family. It's allowed us to live the lifestyle and the choosing profession that we wanted to, and it's important for us to give back to it. I watched what's been going on publicly, whether it's in the Carson City or in Washington, D.C. You know, I get frustrated that people that go out and they campaign, they say they're going to do something, then they go back to the State House or Congress and do something completely different. And then you see you go out different places and you hear people talk about it and say, why is this? Why can't you get people that have true convictions, that are fighters, that go back there and do what they promised? And I said, that's me. I mean, anybody knows me knows that I tell it like I truly believe. I have strong convictions, and I'm a fighter. I don't back down from anything.
True convictions in a second. You've run for office 4 times?
Yes.
What makes you think this time is the charm?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. Number one, I think the public is more fed up with just exactly what I stated previously, more now than ever before. You see that with the two in the presidential primaries, Donald Trump rising to his position and Bernie Sanders drawing the support that he had. They were people that were telling it like it is, want to change and get away from the status quo. So I think, one, the mood is more in favor for what I stand for. Two, if you look at my past races, you will see they were in very substantially Democrat districts, and I had to make up a huge percentage of people on the other party to have a chance to win. And I made up a large segment of in each race, but not enough to win. As you mentioned, this race it's really about 7,400 more Democrats now, less than 1.5 points, and it's a race that is almost evenly split. And I feel very confident that the message we're talking about, and I hope that we're going to get into the economy, terrorism, and the dysfunction of Washington, D.C., that's going to resonate with the people in this district.
Okay, so let's get into policy here. If I were writing a dystopian story about the U.S. today, I would start with this sentence. There is a profound fear that has pervaded the land. People on both sides are afraid of each other. They don't trust each other. How do you address that fundamental fear and distrust?
Well, I think what's happened is that over the past 8 years, there has been a divide politically wise, and I think it was for political expediency, to create a warfare, whether it's a warfare with race, warfare with economics, warfare with age. And it was done for political reasons, and it's created a country that's very, very divided.
Political reasons in terms of what?
So the Democrats can win office. Instead of talking about ways to bring the country together, ways that can help everybody in the country, you always see the segment, well, the Hispanic community it cares about this and the Republicans won't do it, so don't vote Republican. And even if those things they're talking about isn't what's best for the country or for the African-American community, or they talk about the millennials, hey, we're all Americans here. We all care about our country, we love our country, want to live in a great country. We should be talking about what we can do for the whole country and get away from the class warfare that's been going on over the past decade or so.
Okay, so you get to Washington. There still will be divided government probably. So how do you get past that?
Well, I'm one voice out of 435 congressmen and then another 100 senators, and then you're going to have the president. So I'm not naive to think, hey, I'm going to change everything. But all I can do is go back and be the best representative possible. Go back and represent my full district. And go back and try to do what's best for everybody. And you're not going to see, I was motivated to run for office because of two state senators here from Nevada. One was Paul Laxalt, one was Richard Bryan. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. They were statesmen. I think anybody who watched their political careers will tell you they didn't get into this partisan stuff. They didn't use the class warfare, the race warfare. They talked about what was best for our country country, what was best for our state, and how they can work together to get things done. And that's my goal, is to bring back that type of a statesman to represent Congressional District 3.
Immigration is a huge issue in this election. Are you for comprehensive immigration reform? And if so, what would that look like to you?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, because you use that terminology, comprehensive immigration reform, and it could mean a lot of different things. I think the first thing you do is you start on what does everybody agree with, and can we get it passed? And I think most people would agree we need to have secure borders, particularly in today's environment with terrorism going on, with the war on drugs, and a lot of the that coming in across the border. So I think everybody feels we need a secure border. I think there's a very few people in America that don't feel that way. So we have to secure it, whether it's with a wall, whether it's with our technology that we have, with sensors and so forth. But make sure we know who's coming in and out of the country. And that's only on the borders. We also have to make sure we know the people that are coming to our country on the visas, they don't overstay their visas longer than they should. How do we not know who's overstayed our visas with today's technology? 40% of all the people in the country illegally have overstayed their visas. So we have to do a better job of making sure they follow the laws of the visa program. Second thing, which is probably the most important thing, is we need to revise our current immigration laws, because they're outdated. They don't work with the needs of our country or the needs of the people that are trying to come into the country the right way, the legal way. We need workers to come in and perform certain jobs. I hate to say it, but there are some jobs Americans aren't doing, and they're not going to do with the way we are in our society today. But you do have people that want to come in the legal way, the right way to do it, but they're not able to do so because of our outdated immigration laws. So we need to change those immigration laws to make it easier for people to do it the right way.
And how are they outdated?
Well, for somebody who wants to come in here and work in the farming industry, why does it take so long for them to get approved, and then why can't they come back and forth? We can go on. There's a lot more of my immigration I'd like to get into besides that. The next thing is we have to be a country with rules of law and enforce those rules of law. I don't know how anybody can defend a sanctuary city where a city says, I'm not going to enforce the laws of our federal government, and then they operate in impunity. So we have to get rid of sanctuary cities, and the best way to do that, obviously, is through the federal funding. People come in the country and they ask for asylum, and there should be a hearing, and we need to be able to provide that hearing sooner, and not release people into the general public and say, okay, 18 months from now, come back and hopefully we'll see you then. That doesn't work. So I think most people would agree with that those are the type of things that we need done. So then we have, what are we going to do with the people that are here illegally? Well, I don't know how many there are. I don't know if anybody does, but let's use the number that most people use, 11 million. And nobody knows how many of them are people that are here and have committed crimes, and or people that we don't want in the country. But let's say it's 2 million. Those 2 million people, I think most people would say we need to deport them, and deport them immediately. So that leaves 9 million people that are here in the country with families, working, and have been good residents here in our country. This is the sticking point. This is the point that everybody fights over. And I think the common sense approach is there has to be a way that these people can stay in the country legally and not have to have the fear of deportation. I am not in favor of giving citizenship to people that have done it this route, because then you're moving them ahead of people that have waited in line and the right way, and they would be moving ahead of them. But I also think they need to be able to stay here legally, so some type of legal residency. If you do those type of things, I think you're going to see most people agree with it. I guess the bigger question is, why can't we get that done? And I think it's because, again, I think the Democrats use it as a political tool so they can continue to get the Hispanic vote during the elections. And I think a lot of Republicans don't do it because, one, they have a base. A lot of Republicans don't want to give any type of legal residency to people. And there's also a segment of the Republican Party, more the business people that want to have cheap labor, which isn't right either. We shouldn't be running down the labor wages because we're bringing in people the wrong way.
Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. Do you see the difference in those? Is there a difference in those?
I'm not even sure what kind of question that is. I don't mean it to be
when people say Black Lives Matter, do you understand what that is? Is All Lives Matter the same thing to you?
Look, police officers have the second hardest job in our country, besides the military that are actually going into combat, okay? They go into areas where they put their lives on the line. Wives, when their spouses, when their other spouse goes off to serve during the day in their job, they're worried they're not going to come back alive. And we're going to sit here and demonize the full group of those people like the Black Lives Matter does, because there have been some, and there have been some nefarious or cops that have done the wrong thing? Sure, there are some. Just as there's some bad CEOs, there's some bad lawyers, there's some bad doctors, there's some bad cops. So of course I do. But is it only tailored toward black people, or is it only tailored toward? I bet you can tell a lot of Hispanic people that have faced some similar things too. They're upset about it. I watched some videos of a poor white guy that was tasered a number of times and was paralyzed for virtually nothing. I mean, it makes you sick when you see those things. Do I understand there's a problem? I'll give you the perfect example that I was outraged by. You had this guy who was selling cigarettes on the sidewalks in New York City. Mm-hmm. That's all he was doing was selling cigarettes. He didn't have anything that could have hurt these police officers. The police officer grabbed him in a chokehold that was against their policies. He pleaded for them to let go, and they didn't. And he ended up dying from suffocation. That is wrong.
Right.
That it was completely wrong. And I think those police officers should have paid the price, the criminal price, for what they did. But on the other hand, when you have somebody like Michael Brown, who the evidence shows reached into the police car, grabbed the guy's gun, and punched the guy several times, well, now he's attacking a police officer, and that officer had the right to defend himself. So the point I'm saying is, do I understand the difference? Everybody's life matters, not just one. To demonize a profession that provides such an important, sacred principle of our country as a police officers is wrong. To go out and chant what they were chanting, death to the police officers in the New York City parade, makes me almost as sick. I'll tell you what, it makes me more sick when you see 6 police officers executed in Dallas, or you see the 2 in New York City right after that rally that were shot in their police cars. It's that the innocent life should matter to everybody. Innocent lives are the ones that we should be talking about.
So we're talking about the chanting happened after Eric Garner's death, and then the two police officers sitting in their car. We are talking to Danny Tarkanian, who is running for Congress in District 3 to replace Joe Heck. He's running against Democrat Jackie Rosen. You can hear this and other candidate interviews at knpr.org in our election 2016 voter guide. We'll be back in a moment. It's KNPR's State of Nevada. It's KNPR State of Nevada. Today we're looking at Congressional District 3. We talked to Jackie Rosen earlier in the program, and now we're talking to Danny Tarkanian. So more policy questions. One of the issues in this election is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's been a big thing. Secretary Clinton has come out against it. President Obama is still pushing really hard to pass this. Donald Trump hasn't actually been clear on what he thinks about TPP. So what do you think of TPP?
Look, we have to have international trade agreements. TPP, right, is one of them, okay? We have to have ones, but we as the United States have the world's largest, most powerful, most important economy. And with that, we have the most leverage in negotiating these treaties. You said Trump hasn't been clear with them. What I understand Trump saying, and which I agree with, is we need international treaties, but they should be treaties that benefit us far more than the countries that we're dealing with, because we're the ones providing the vast majority of consumers. And that's what I'm in favor for. I haven't gone through the line items of what read the TPP and the whole treaty there. I can tell you, if it's not favorable to the United States, then it needs to be redone and done something that's favorable to us. I'm in favor of free trade, but it's got to be free trade that we have the best deals for the United States based upon the leverage that we have because of our economy.
So let's talk about health care. There are seniors in Nevada. I know quite a few of them. And what I hear about is worries that they're paying thousands of dollars a month, thousands of dollars sometimes up to 10% of their income on medications. Congress specifically forbade Medicare from negotiating lower pharmaceutical prices. The ACA was supposed to change that. I don't think it has. Can something be done about this?
Yeah, we can get government out of trying to regulate all these different things and let the free market take over, and you're going to see a much better product out there. Look, Hillary Clinton has proposed a single-payer system, and then it's going to be just the government and the cost of it.
She hasn't proposed a single-payer system. I mean, that was the argument with Bernie Sanders. She proposes making this system better, but go ahead.
Okay. So what we have right now is we have a system that the government is telling us what our healthcare options are, and we all have to buy it, and we have no right to negotiate, and we don't know, and we won't allow insurance companies to compete across state lines. So you see a skyrocketing price on it. You see a higher deductible. You see the people that are getting the insurance that Obama keeps bragging about are getting it because the government's paying subsidies for over 90% of them. So we have a system that is out of control cost-wise, out of control for the people that are paying it, and we have less accessibility to doctors of her choice. It's the worst of all worlds. Now, I'm going to give you a perfect example, and I can give it with clear facts because it's happened to me. Before Obamacare happened, and again, I'm a middle-class person working my tail off to provide for my family and give them what they need. I was paying $440 a month for insurance for my 4 children and wife. It was $1,000 deductible. Now, with Obamacare, I'm paying $1,480 a month. This is 3 years later. This is the third year. $5,000 deductible for each one, and my son had a stroke a year ago, and that deductible went out the window. My wife's had an illness, so we had to pay that. If you count just the deductibles from those two in my family, I'm paying over $2,400 a month for my insurance. You talk about frustration. Look, this is the solution to our healthcare problem, is we need to make it tailored back towards the market where each person can pick and choose what they want and create health savings accounts. And I'm talking about health savings accounts that are owned by the individual that they can take from job to job. Second of all, allow anybody who's paying into that for it to be deductible, and then allow people to purchase insurance across state lines. We do it for car insurance. We do it for life insurance. Right now, we have 2, maybe 3 insurance companies that are providing health insurance here in Nevada. Why not open it up and have more competition? Now, the key thing here is, and this is where the Democrats will argue, and they got a point on it, there's nobody should be denied insurance because of a pre-existing condition. You have to have some type of catastrophic insurance coverage for these people so that they're not denied coverage because of their inability to fall within a reasonable cost coverage, so that they're not. Right now, what's happening is you put them in the regular pool with everybody else. People like myself are paying 3 times of what it was before. So you put it in a separate pool with the taxpayers paying for it, with the government controlling it, and they're covered that way. It's going to be a lot less expensive than what we're paying right now with the government. The government's paying right now for the health insurance. So you cover the pre-existing conditions that way with the government cost. You allow everybody else to use a free market and go out and then you have the portable insurance where you can take your health savings account from job to job, and it's a heck of a lot better system than what we currently have.
So Social Security. Privatizing Social Security, mixture of privatization and public. What do you want to do with that?
No. Look, you can't change what the promises we made to the people that have paid into Social Security just because we've had irresponsible politicians that have wasted their money. We need to protect and preserve the benefits that are being provided to everybody on Social Security now and anybody who's even close to that, and we cannot raise the cost to those people. That has to be a sacred promise. We made that promise to people when they were paying in over the years. Then when you get to people that are younger, people that have a chance to adjust, I think one of the simple solutions to preserving Social Security and keeping it solvent. I would love the listeners, any listeners not believe this is the right approach. In 1930, Social Security was passed. The average life expectancy was 59 years of age. Now it's 78 years of age. We've gone up 19 years in our life expectancy, and the eligibility for Social Security has not even gone up 2 years yet. They're in the process of finishing a 2-year deal. Why not tell people that are in their 20s and 30s, hey, look, you're going to have to work 2 more years longer than you currently do before you can get Social Security. I'm not talking about the current people or people closest that have been relying upon this, which is what my opponent keeps misrepresenting. I'm talking about people that have time to adjust to it, that are living longer. I'll tell you what, imagine how long people that are in the 20s and 30s are going to live past the 78 years we're talking about now. Common sense tells you that if our life expectancy goes up, the eligibility that you receive your Social Security should go up.
There's a ballot measure in Nevada on background checks. There are also bills in Congress to make it harder for people on the no-fly list, for example, to purchase a gun. Does Congress, Democrat or Republican, do they have the will to act on this?
Well, look, I think most people want to make sure that someone who purchases a gun has a background check, and they want to take away reasonable loopholes that are out there. But on the other hand, the ballot measure that we have currently, it criminalizes behavior that many people, good law-abiding people who own guns, do all the time. For example, I went out the other day with a guy who just got it back from Afghanistan. He's endorsing me. He's from Vietnam. I mean, he's a veteran, and he's already endorsed my campaign. He takes me out to an area. It's not a shooting range. It's an area out into the south part of Las Vegas, and he lets me shoot on one of the new rifles that he had just purchased. It was a great experience. If he had done that after this background check, if it does get passed, he would have committed a crime. And quite honestly, I would have committed a crime when I gave him back the rifle. Those are the type of things, common sense things that should not have been in that bill that would have made it more palatable to people. Unfortunately, it's not. For example, if somebody who's not from the first degree relations with you, if you let them borrow a gun, that's a crime. I mean, they could have came up with a lot better approach than what they wrote up there, and I think that's the biggest problem. The no-fly zone, and again, it sounds great, the no-fly zone. You don't want anybody who you suspect have reasonable suspicion that is a terrorist to have the ability to carry a gun on any of these flights, right? I think everybody would agree with that. Mm-hmm. The problem is we don't have any kinds of constitutional protections to show there's reasonable suspicion, which is guaranteed by our Constitution. You cannot deprive someone of their Second Amendment rights without providing them their constitutional right to be able to have at least a notice of a hearing and the right to respond. So how can you say you can deny somebody the right to carry a gun if you don't even give them notice and an opportunity to respond, which is what our Constitution says?
Early voting starts October 22nd, and we are interviewing candidates. Today we're looking at Congressional District 3 race between Danny Tarkanian and Jackie Rosen. They're running to replace Joe Heck. So Danny, I grew up here. I, of course, watched your dad coach. I watched you play. Then I moved away.
That's not a good thing. You're aging yourself. A long time ago.
I am. When I came back, I found that the Tarkanian family wasn't just a sports family. You guys were totally embedded in public service. Your mom was a city council member for the city of Las Vegas. Your wife, Amy, was the head of the Nevada Republican Party at one point. What drives your family to do this?
We were just raised that public service is very important, particularly when so much has been provided to us from this community. Most importantly, for my mother, I want to throw out some kudos to her. She started the largest private school of the deaf in California, which is still the largest. She started that when she was in her early 20s. Very, very proud of that. Then she came to Las Vegas and worked with hard of hearing children for most of her early life. Then she was on the school board for 12 years. You want to talk about a thankless public service job? That's the school board. And I was raised that that's what's very important. And again, as I mentioned earlier on the show, that's what drives me now. I watch what's going on, not just in Washington, D.C., but in the State House. And you see people that go back there and they don't perform the way they promise they're going to when they campaign. It frustrates people. And my father always taught me the worst thing you can be in life is a phony. You'd much rather have less success, have maybe some people that don't like you, but be honest and tout like it is and stand by your convictions. And that's the way I was raised, and that's why I want to get into public service.
Two questions for Nevada that have to do with public land. One is Yucca Mountain. Harry Reid has been sort of the protector of Yucca Mountain. Do you agree with him, or do you think that it should become a nuclear repository?
I don't agree it should become a nuclear repository. I don't agree with Harry Reid. So, I mean, there's two no's on it.
What needs to be done?
This is what we can do. There's been over $40-50 billion by now in money that's been set aside to develop Yucca Mountain. We should use Yucca Mountain as a reprocessing facility of nuclear spent fuel. This is what France does with 98% of their energy comes from nuclear spent fuel. They reprocess it. Before you get all this and that, let me explain how this works. And I'm talking about the listeners. There are over 100 above-site nuclear sites where they store nuclear spent fuel right now, right, most of them next to major metropolitan areas. You're talking about the most easily accessible place for a terrorist to commit an act. How about that? Right next to San Diego, every time I drive down there. Something needs to be done with that. It needs to be done in a safe area. I don't want to store nuclear spent fuel here in Nevada any more than most people that have lived here their whole lives. But we can solve both problems by just reprocessing that nuclear spent fuel. We could do it here in Nevada. What would happen is you'd have a $100 billion construction project, which would put all these workers, construction workers back in place. You'd have six-figure, high-paying jobs once it was done. We'd turn UNLV and UNR into the leading research institutions in the whole world. We'd get rid of, from American soil, 98% of all the nuclear spent fuel that's there right now, and you'd reprocess clean energy, which would help all the climate change people. You'd have the cleanest clean energy you could have at the disposal here in Nevada. And what it would do is it turn Nevada into a lot like Alaska, where citizens in Alaska get rebates back from the oil industry. We can get those rebates back because we reprocess the nuclear spent fuel. The argument against that from Harry Reid is, well, then you're going to transport this nuclear spent fuel into the state of Nevada. There could be an accident. The fallacy of that argument is Harry Reid has signed and he knows that for decades they've provided transportation of nuclear spent fuel through Nevada for decades now, and there hasn't been an accident, and we're actually storing a lot of it in certain parts of Nevada right now. We're storing it. We're not reprocessing it. Now, look at you could always find an argument against it, but we have problems that need to be solved. We have needs in Nevada to diversify our economy. This, to me, is an approach. So I'm in favor of reprocessing it, not storing it. And then you had a second question.
Yeah,
I'm
the
sorry.
second question about this is, the Bundys.
Oh, yeah.
They federal land. The Bundys are in jail.
Yeah.
But the issue that they bring up is an issue that a lot of people agree with, that federal land should go back to the states. Do you agree
and
with
this is
that?
where I go off a little bit from the Republican point of view. And again, I think anybody who follows my campaigns will know that I speak what I truly believe in, and I'm not sitting there across party lines. No, I don't believe that Nevada should take back all of the federal land and try to manage it. It would be an astronomical cost. There are certain things the federal government should control over. National parks is an easy one, okay? But what should be released and what should be no debate on, and what I wish our most powerful senator in the history of our state, who was a majority in the state senate, did, was he should have gotten all the land that is held by the BLM, that is in our areas where we can build homes, industrial use, or commercial use. If he got that land released back to the state, there's hundreds of acres in South Las Vegas Boulevard, prime land that BLM holds that we can't do anything with. Imagine what Governor Sandoval and the Diversification Committee, what is it? Whatever the committee is that tries to bring in new businesses. Right. Imagine what they could do if they had all that land available to them. They could put together and entice companies like Faraday to come in here, maybe not give them as much tax breaks, but you allow them the use of the land for 100 years at $1 a year. Look, we're not getting any money from that land. The federal government pays us a small pittance for the use of that land, why it's BLM land. So we don't get any use from the property taxes. We don't get construction use from it, meaning we don't build on it. We don't have property taxes. We don't get any kinds of sales or employment taxes off of it while it's held by the BLM. Give that land back to the state. Bring in some out-of-state companies. Let them use the land for virtually nothing. You're going to have property taxes built when it's done. You're going to have sales taxes, employment taxes. It's a win-win for everybody. There's no reason for them to hold it. The only reason for them to hold it is the greed of the federal government.
Okay, so some lands you think there can be negotiation here, that some lands can go back to the state.
Some land absolutely should be released to the state if it's in an area that we can build industrial, commercial, or residential use out of it. It absolutely should go back. And there is no reason to argue against that. But what happens is you lump that land into the Bundy arguments and you lose traction on it.
We've been talking to Republican congressional candidate Danny Tarkanian. Tarkanian is running to replace Joe Heck in District 3. You can find this conversation and other candidate interviews on our Election 2016 voter guide at knpr.org. Danny, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Can't believe how fast it went. Thank you.
It goes very fast. This is KNPR, State of Nevada.